In section 3-4, we're talking about parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, specifically the objective is going to be to relate parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, so look at relationships between the two of them. Okay, here we go. First thing I have for you are 3 theorems about the relationship between parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, you don't need to memorize the names for these theorems. They're really more common sense than anything. First one says that if 2 lines are parallel to the same line, then they're parallel to each other. Okay, so if A is parallel to B and B is parallel to C, so A and C are both parallel to B, that means that A will be parallel to C. Kind of a transitive property of parallel lines. Next one, we're going to say in a plane, if 2 lines are perpendicular to the same line, then they're parallel to each other. Okay, so here I have if M is perpendicular to T, this is a perpendicular to symbol, and N is perpendicular to T. So both M and N are perpendicular to T. We know they'll be parallel to each other. Okay, if I want to prove this, well, I have 2 lines in a transversal, congruent corresponding angles. Okay, therefore the lines are parallel. And then the last one, in a plane, if a line is perpendicular to one of 2 parallel lines, then it's also perpendicular to the other. Okay, so if N is perpendicular to L and L is parallel to M, that means that N will be perpendicular to M as well. Again, a proof, I have parallel lines. I know corresponding angles be congruent, so these both would have to be 90 degrees. Okay, so 3 theorems. Again, you don't need to memorize them. They're kind of common sense. Let's take a look at how we can use those in the next couple of questions. All right, problem 1, solving a problem with parallel lines. Okay, part A says a carpenter cuts the pieces shown at the right to frame a door. We want to know, will the sides of the pieces on the left and right be parallel? Okay, so will the left and right side be parallel? Okay, easiest way to check that is to see if the segment in between the two of them is going to be perpendicular. In other words, do I get a right angle between the two of these? Well, answer for that will be no, okay, because 40 degrees plus 60 degrees is not equal to 90. Okay, so I know that these lines in the middle aren't perpendicular, therefore the left and right side will not be parallel. Okay, so really what we're asking here is, do we have a right angle? All right, B is kind of the same idea. Okay, checking for parallel, looking for perpendicular parts. Okay, why don't you pause the video, work through that problem, and then hit play to check your answer. In problem 2, we're going to look at proving relationships between 2 lines. Okay, not so much necessarily proving here, but just figuring out what that relationship is. Part A says in a plane, C is perpendicular to B, B is perpendicular to D, and D is perpendicular to A. What do you know about the relationship between C and A? Explain. Okay, now we could think about things kind of using our theorems we gave you. I'd say it's probably easiest here just to draw a picture. So I'm going to draw a line and call it C. I'm going to make another line perpendicular to C. We'll call that one B. Again, we know they're at a right angle. We then have B is perpendicular to D, so however I draw D, we need to make sure it hits B at a right angle. And then finally we have that D is perpendicular to A, so if this is D, we'll say this is my A right here at a right angle. Okay, it doesn't matter how you draw this picture as long as these relationships hold true. Okay, so your picture doesn't need to look exactly like mine. All right, we want to know what's the relationship between A and C. Well, I can see here if I extended A, we'd hit C at a right angle. If we only have parallel and perpendicular lines, they're either going to be parallel or perpendicular. Okay, so here I can say that C is perpendicular to A. All right, part B is the same idea. Pause the video, work through the problem, and then hit play to check your answer.